Hey, this is Fireman Rob. You know, optimal performance isn't something that happens just by accident. I know this for a fact from being a fireman and doing way too many Ironman triathlons in full firefighter gear. But everybody always asks me, what's your secret? I can give you one secret. That's the right stuff hydration. Hydration is important when it comes to being present in the moment, ready to run into the fires and being capable of showing up every single time at your best. The right stuff was created for NASA, by NASA, for their astronauts. Now it's trusted by professional athletes in Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, and most of the top-tier college sports. It's not an accident to prepare yourself to be great. If you're looking for that next edge, go to therightstuff-usa.com and enter the code FiremanRob and you will get 10% off at your checkout. This is an opportunity I wouldn't pass up. I have and still do use the right stuff. It's serious hydration for serious athletes, from the weekend warriors to those on the front lines. Make this a part of your habits to be the best you daily.
Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
We got the same blood, the same blood. Stay by your side, it's ride or die. We've got the same blood.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. It's great to have you here today, and I've got a great guest for you. And you know, I have to give him a little flack because he's from Iowa, and Wisconsin and Iowa don't always get along the best. But you know, we're gonna have a great time today. Super accomplished coach, speaker. He's been in the financial services. He has a wife and 3 daughters, so he understands what life is all about. Jordan Montgomery, great to have you here today.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me. And it is fitting that we would have this conversation the week of the Wisconsin-Iowa game. Now, probably as the audience is listening, the game is over and we know the result. But as of right now, while we're recording this conversation, we don't know where that game's going to go, so we can be friendly. And
there's a little animosity, I know. You know, it's
just we'll see where the conversation goes. But for right now, we're friends and we're good.
I love it. I love it. You know, I want to get into this because I love, I'm going through your Instagram. You're a big family man, but at the same time, you're very successful. And there's a lot of people in life that have a huge challenge of going, gosh, if I want to be successful, I can't really have both. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, I think that's a misnomer. I think if you're going to max out, if you're going to be great, there is a way to be great in all areas of your life. I think that's God's plan for your life. So first and foremost, I think that's God's best. I think that's how God's designed us, is to live a life of purpose, not just at work, but at home and in the community and with our friends. So, you know, I think there's this whole thing about balance and, you know, make sure you live a balanced life. Ed Milet, you know, I love what he says about balance. He says balance is elusive. And in other words, it's really hard to obtain balance. And here's why. When you're at work and you're really getting after it in your work, you're not flourishing with your family, right? So while I'm recording this with you right now, I have to be okay with the fact that my relationship with my girls in this moment with my daughters is not growing. Okay. It's not vibrant in this very moment. I'm not this activity. Now I'm providing for them, right? I can make that argument, but it's not like I'm spending quality time with them because I'm with you. And later on tonight, when I'm spending time with them, I could be worried about business. And when I'm spending time with you, I could be worried about them and I'm trying to figure out this whole balance thing. And I think that leads to a lot of anxiety. So instead of worried about, trying to be balanced, I'd say just be fully present. Just be all in at whatever you're doing. And if you're trying to max out in the different areas of your life, When you're with your family, be with your family. When you're at work, be at work. Be where your feet are. Easier said than done. I've struggled with that many times in my life, and I've suffered the consequences of not being fully present. But there is a way to max out in multiple areas of your life, and I think that's God's best. That's God's plan. That's how he wants to use you as your journey unfolds.
I love that when you're talking about being engaged in the moment, because it's such a hard thing for people these days because they worry about so many different things. And I think it's always been like that. I think that we're just able to hear more about it all the time. I love one of your quotes that you have on your social media. You talk about life is a team sport, and it was perfect transition from you talking about your family. We never win or lose on our own. Pay attention to the people around you. Tell me more about that quote, because it's so powerful when you think about it, because everybody thinks that I have to succeed by myself, but really we're all in this together and using our strengths and our weaknesses to actually enhance each other.
We are all the byproduct of, you are Rob and I am the byproduct of many people who have come before us, who have decided to invest in us. Some of those people have done that from afar. Some people have done that up close. But the reality is, I'm just a person who's learned from a bunch of other generous people who've gone before me, whether it's been a grade school teacher, a youth coach, a pastor at my church, a business coach, colleagues, my family. I'm learning from the people around me. So I do believe that life is a team sport. We win and lose together. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of good people in my life who I've been able to learn from. But yeah, I think life is about relationships. And as long as I'm on this planet, I want to be winning with people and learning from people. And today I get to learn from you. I'm going to have this conversation with you. So I appreciate the question. And I would just say I'm a relational guy. I always have been, and feel very grateful to have some great people in my life that I've been able to learn from.
I love that. And now you have your own podcast. I love that. I want to make sure you go to montgomerycompanies.com and /podcast. You can actually see all of his speaking, all the podcasts. Who's been one of your favorite guests that you've had on so far?
We've had so many great guests. Recently, we recorded a conversation with John Gordon with a few thousand people. We actually did a live event and then turned it into a podcast. John is one of the foremost thought leaders on leadership, positivity, and encouragement. He's become a good friend. So he's been great. I'd throw it all the way back to the early days of the podcast. We had Bob Berg, Liz Bohannon, John Rulin. Was great. Just recently did an episode with NFL Rams cornerback Robert Rochelle, who had just a crazy upbringing, grew up kind of in a not ideal circumstance and situation. His father was murdered. His uncle was murdered, lost a cousin. And so, getting to interview people like that who've just faced extreme adversity, who've come out the other side, is always super inspiring to me. So, yeah. And I learn if somebody's listening and they're thinking about doing a podcast, I think this, Rob, like one of the benefits of podcasting is you learn and you get to have these interesting conversations, and it's like, it's easy to get a meeting, like if you get you want to meet somebody, get to know them, and you want to learn. It's like, start a podcast. It's just a great way to engage and create new friends.
I love it because you talk about focusing on cultivating proven strategies to enhance other people, but at the same time, it's so much enhancing yourself. I mean, hearing some of the strategies and the ideas, it invigorates my day. Like when I get to talk to individuals like you, Jordan, it's so powerful. What would you say to individuals who are looking at that podcast? Because I mean, when somebody's looking at your podcast, what do you want them to truly take out of each of those episodes? Like just one piece of advice.
Yeah, I just think I want them to be encouraged. I want our podcast to be a source of positivity and encouragement. My friend John Gordon says, I'm not positive because life is easy. I'm positive because life is difficult. And so in a world that's all too often difficult and cold and can be mean-spirited, I think we want to be a light to people who come to our podcast and engage with other inspirational people who have encouraging stories to share.
I love that. And I see that you talk to some sports teams and athletes. what is the difference do you see when you're coaching or speaking to athletes versus CEOs or top sales leaders? Do you feel that they're the same, or is there certain differences?
I think there's a lot of similarities. Our work is really centered around leadership development. And we believe that, if you've got influence, you are a leader. And so whether you have influence with a few or influence with many, we want to steward our influence well. So the practical application of that might look different for an executive leader in business versus an athlete that's on the court or on the field. But the reality is we're all trying to grow in our self-awareness. We're all trying to grow in our communication skills and the way that we build relationships and the way that we lead and empower others. So I'd say actually there's a lot of similarities to the boardroom in the locker room. I think, at the center of that is working on yourself, building the leader within and making sure that you're the best version of you. So I think they're actually very similar. I don't know that our content or strategy changes a lot. I think in the world of sports, one thing that I've learned, and this would be a good message for anybody listening who wants to work in that world, or if you are working in that world, this. I think being very transparent is very important when you're working with young athletes. Yes. Credibility is everything. They want to know what you've done and what you haven't done. I am a 180-pound, middle-class dude that looks like I probably have never, played college football or any college sport for that matter. And if I don't call attention to that, you lose credibility, So,
right.
So I think transparency and authenticity is especially important when you're working in the world of sports, but that's important in any setting. So I'd say really there's a lot of commonality between the boardroom and the locker room.
I love that because I think it's so true. Having talked to a lot of different athletes and at the same time, many different executives, the stresses are similar on all of them, be it a stress for your employees, but also a stress on yourself because it's your livelihood. How do you, I love this new conference, and we'll talk about the conference that you guys have coming up. How do you lead positively in your own mind? What are some tips that you have for that?
Well, I think you got to be really mindful of the little things, the details, and being positive is a choice. Your response to adversity is a choice. And we can either listen to ourselves or we can speak to ourselves. John Gordon and I were talking about that the other day in a conversation. He said, again, I'm not positive because life is easy. I'm positive because life is difficult. And every day I have a choice to either listen to myself or speak to myself. If I listen to myself, I'm going to be beat up by my own thoughts because 80% of our 70,000 thoughts each day are negative. So there's a lot of negativity naturally running through our brain. So I can choose to listen to that, or I can speak out loud. I can go on offense and take control of my voice. And I might not always be in control of what I think, but I am always in control of what I say. And ironically, what you say drives much of what you think. And there's a lot of neuroscience that supports the power of externalization. When you speak a thought out loud, it becomes more probable and more real in your own world. And so, that's one thing, externalization, speaking out loud, choosing to speak positivity is a big deal. The other one is your environment. We all have heard this. Right. You're like the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with. That's true. What's the science behind that? The science behind that is other people create your standards. And I say that sometimes and I get a funny look and people are like, well, I don't know if that's true. Hold on, I create my own standards. And I said, well, no, actually, if you were born into a tribe in a third world country, you would have different standards. Your environment has shaped your standards. Now, we still have free will, and I believe that we have choice. But at the end of the day, the people who are in closest proximity to you have the greatest influence over you, and they are shaping your standards. They're shaping what you eat. They're shaping the way that your body moves. They're shaping your activities. They're shaping the way that you engage with others. They're shaping your success or your failure. And your life is always moving in the direction of your environment, those who are in closest proximity to you. So those are 2 tips. I just say, pay really close attention to the people who are in close proximity to you. If you want to be positive, you got to hang out with positive people. The other thing I'd say is make sure you're paying attention to your speak, the words that come out of your mouth. You're not always in control of what you think. but
Right.
you are in control of what you say. We all have crazy, messed up thoughts, right? It's part of being human, but we got to go on offense and take control of the way that we use our words. Words create worlds, thoughts become things. You have a choice in what you say.
I love how you put that in, completely with your words, what you say, and then the environment thing. So now you've done some podcasts with some individuals who have been in those environments, who are surrounded not by the people that are going to create that positivity or create that impact. How do you see that they conversely were able to get out of that environment? Because that a lot of times that is all encompassing, and to be able to change that speak in your head is extremely challenging. What have you heard from people? How do they start to change that? Because it's not an easy process.
Well, I think to know optimism is to know adversity. So if you know true optimism, it's because you felt true adversity. So most of the people that I interact with that we host on our podcast that know true optimism, that are positive and forward thinking and abundant and, see the glass half full, most of them have been through something really significant. They've hit rock bottom at some point in their life or in some area of their life. And that understanding of what rock bottom is all about has actually increased their levels of optimism and positivity. They're naturally more grateful for what they have. They're naturally filled with humility because, again, they've been through some hard things. They naturally have higher levels of empathy and compassion. And so, I don't think positivity is all about just winning all the time. I think it's about choosing to respond to adversity the right way. And for somebody that's listening, if you're going through something really difficult, just understand that. Like, I had somebody say this to me the other day, Rob. They said, I don't want a business partner. I don't want to go into business with anyone who hasn't hit rock bottom. I want to be around people. I want to have partners in my life who have hit rock bottom. I want to know that they understand true hardship, because to understand true hardship and true adversity is to also understand true optimism. Yeah,
and you put it perfectly. I wrote it down because I tend to forget things. But choosing to respond to adversity the right way, I think that's so powerful. And a lot of things, I get to talk with individuals who are suffering from depression, anxiety, PTSD in the fire service, police service. And I think it's such a huge message of that, because a lot of people hear positivity and they'll see, unicorns and all this other stuff, and they just don't see it as a possibility. But I love that way that you phrased it. Now, when you hit rock bottom, like, how do people remember where they were to continue to move forward? Because a lot of times that will come back into your mind frame, and you will get that negativity that will drive you back down.
Yeah, I think making sure that you're moving forward actually starts with owning your story. So what we find with a lot of people who relapse or can't seem to get out of a specific situation is they're just not willing to own what they've actually been through. Trauma has an interesting way of reminding us, what we've been through. Right. And we relapse. We go back to that place. And so, Brene Brown says it beautifully. She says, if you deny the story, it will define you. When you own the story, you can write a brand new ending. And there's some magic in owning what you've been through, because here's what happens in my experience, Rob, and I've had to own some of the things that I've been through. When you start to own parts of your story, you start to realize how many other people who have been through hard stuff. Vulnerability begets vulnerability. And that's a big opportunity for most of us, because we live in this world that's sort of artificial and fake, and most of us don't walk around talking about the deepest, darkest, hardest parts of our life. But when you do start to talk about some of the things that you've been through, number one, you're an encouragement to other people. You're a lighthouse to others, but you also give people an opportunity to be vulnerable with you. It's like, wow, Rob's human. He's been through some stuff. Guess what, Rob? I have too. Let me share what I've been through. And so you're sort of encouraged and called upward by the fact that there's this realization that we're all human. We're all going through things. That's why they put people who have experienced trauma together in groups to talk about their trauma. It's this realization that I'm not the only one, and I can share my story, and I can be open, and I can be vulnerable. And my vulnerability will actually allow others to be encouraged, but it will also allow others to open up with me and share their journey and share their story. And so I think vulnerability and owning the story is a really big part of that. I think there's a wrong way to do that. I think there's people who do that for attention. And I think there's people who do that because they really want to help others and they really want to get through what they've been through.
Right.
So there's a right way and a wrong way. But I think if you can learn to do that in the right way, man, I think that can be really powerful in moving forward and not staying stuck in, the dark days of yesterday.
Yeah, there's a new phrase called trauma competition, and it's a hard one because it's a lot of people having been in the military and having being in the fire service. A lot of people will look at other people's traumas and go, "Well, mine's not as bad as theirs," and so it's not gonna. I shouldn't worry about this, or I shouldn't affect this, or mine's worse than theirs. Why are they complaining? And so it's one of those things where you look at it. What do you feel about that phrase? Because it really hits me hard because it's like, gosh, I see that all the time.
Well, number one, we're all on our own journey, and the quickest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. So your journey is your journey, and we all have to be mindful, just like we compare our good stuff.
Right.
Sometimes, to your point, we compare the bad stuff. Is my bad as somebody else's bad? Is their bad as my bad? And I think that's really dangerous. You're on your own journey. You're living your own life. And I think you got to be really careful to compare what you've been through relative to what anybody else has been through. And I struggle with that because I was a fairly privileged 27-year-old who grew up in sort of middle America with a good family, loving parents, and a Christian home. And, I would share my story and sometimes feel bad. Like, well, I didn't lose a child. I haven't been through divorce. I'm not a cancer survivor. I was on the front lines in the military. I didn't,
Right.
But look, like my story is my story. My feelings are my feelings. Like what you feel is real. And so
I love that statement. I love what you just said. What you feel is, that's so true. That's so true. And people need to really hear that. Now, this leads perfectly into perspective. And I need to ask you about your story, the tent story with your daughter.
I don't know if you heard the tent story, but yeah, man. I just believe this. I believe that we all have a powerful perspective. We do a lot of leadership training. And so we talk about the power of perspective. And I challenge a lot of CEO types to think about how they can learn from the people around them. The director of first impressions, the person that cleans the office, maybe their newest hire or their least experienced team member. Because I just believe the CEO, the most experienced member of the team, has a lot to learn from those other people. And the person who has an open mind, who's constantly asking questions, is in a really great position to lead effectively. So sometimes you got to take your own medicine, right? And I was setting up a tent with my wife, 4th of July in Iowa. Everybody goes to the 4th of July parade because there's nothing else to do in Iowa, right? So it's 4th of July, everybody goes. But because everybody goes, you got to get there early to set up your spot. So literally people will start getting out on the street at like 6 a.m. to throw up a tent. So we did that, but my wife and I went together because we had to set up this tent together, which meant we had to get all three of our girls out of bed early, threw them in the car. We're like, hey, we're going to go down to the parade, set up our tent, and we'll come back, climb in bed, let them sleep for another, hour or two. Well, we get them out of bed early. Instead of 10 minutes, it was 20 minutes, then it was 30 minutes, and it's 40 minutes. My wife and I are trying to set up this tent. And Rob, we cannot figure it out. Like literally our marriage is on the rocks. And I'm bitching at her, she's bickering at me. And we're going back and forth and we're just, we're sweating. It's hot. Our girls don't want to be there. They're in the car. Finally, my 10-year-old rolls down the window and she says, hey, Mom and Dad, if you turn the tent over, you'll be able to set it up. I'm not sure if you saw this, but the tent is upside down. Like literally it was upside down. And in that moment, my daughter had a perspective that we didn't have. So where you sit determines what you see, and you see something different than everyone else sees. You have a perspective that's different, and different is valuable. And that's so, the whole point is we stand to learn something from the people around us, regardless of their experience, their level of influence or success. And I think for leaders who really want to be great, you have to have a heightened awareness to the fact that you can learn from everyone, including sometimes your 10-year-old daughter.
who was sitting away, not right in there. Oh, I love that.
It was a good moment, man. It was a good learning moment for mom and dad. That's for sure.
And being humble to the fact that you're like, oh yeah, we knew that.
That's right. Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah, we knew it was upside down. Yeah. How did we not know that? Totally. Yeah. Good moment of humility.
I love it. Well, make sure you go to montgomerycompanies.com and find out more. He's got his speaking on there, his coaching. You can go to his podcast. I want to end here with talking more about this conference that you have coming up on November 17th. Free online sign up. It's the Lead Positive Conference. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, John Gordon actually puts this conference on. So it's John Gordon and his company, his team that puts the event together. But it's going to be a great event. Erwin McManus, Miles McPherson, he brings together some of the top thought leaders in the world and speaks about this idea of positivity, but also speaks about the topics of leadership. So John Gordon for a long time has been, one of sort of the world's leading experts in the areas of leadership. And it's a free conference. I'm honored to be involved. I think I'm one of maybe 12 speakers.
Oh, but you're right in the front I can see your picture. You're right behind John. I mean, that's a prominent area.
Well, it's fun, man. Yeah, we seriously really honored. John's become a good friend and
Love it.
Grateful to be involved in that conference. But yeah, it's free. I think you go to leadpositive.com if you want to register. It's just a free online conference you can watch from anywhere. And we'd love to have any of your guests with us on November 17th.
Perfect. Well, awesome, Jordan. Hey, I always end the same way. I've got 3 questions. I didn't give them to you before because I want to, have you sweat a little like you're putting up a tent upside down.
Love it.
All right. Here's the first one. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Well, there's a lot of advice that I would give to my 18-year-old self. Yeah, I'm gonna give more than just one. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. Number one is enjoy small moments. Life moves so fast. You don't get a moment back, so enjoy it while it's here. Number 2 is ask for more feedback. Believe we all have blind spots. Growth and development starts with self-awareness. I'm still on that journey today, Rob. I got a lot of work to do, but we need to ask for help and ask for feedback. And number 3 is just be kind. You never know what people are dealing with or what they're going through. It's always the right time to be kind.
I love that. Do you get to speak to a lot of schools and stuff like that?
I do. Yeah, I've been really fortunate, man, to speak to a lot of high school kids and middle school age kids. And that's the message of being kind and and being good to people is always at the forefront.
That's huge. That's huge. It's needed nowadays, definitely.
All
right, here's the second question for you. Now, a lot of people are going through struggles, and they go through struggles, and not just during a pandemic, but all the throughout their lives. If you could give them 2 habits that they could start, it doesn't have to be in the morning or the evening. It could be out throughout their day. What would be 2 habits that they should start now to start living their life forward?
Well, I think earlier we talked about speaking out loud, speaking positivity. Mm-hmm. I would take that seriously. It will feel funny at first. Back to John Gordon, he shared this idea with me about going on gratitude walks. And so that's something that I do and I practice, whether I have 10 minutes or 30 minutes to do it. I go for a walk. I get my body moving. Physiology affects psychology. The way that your body moves affects the way that your mind thinks. And so there's something about being in motion, something about movement tied to gratitude that's really powerful. So, that'd be one just tip that I'd share with somebody who wants to, again, get unstuck or move forward. Speak it out loud, be grateful. There's something really attractive about a posture of humility and a grateful heart. And then remember to put your body in motion. Physiology affects psychology.
I like that. This last one is a fun one because it's all over the board that people give answers. And so if you could have any 3 people, they could be deceased or alive, have coffee with you at a firehouse table. So in other words, no questions are off the table. Who would those 3 people be and why?
Yeah, my answer might sound a little bit cliche, but I've thought about this before because I've been asked that question. So again, maybe I'm cheating. But the three people that I would have at that table, and to be clear, Rob, are we going alive, dead or alive? Is that the deal?
Dead or alive, it doesn't matter.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I would say first is Jesus. That's for me.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be for others, but for me, if you're asking me the question, it'd be Jesus. My opinion, he's the greatest leader to ever walk planet Earth, and so I'd want to chat with Jesus. Number two would be my grandfather. My grandpa recently passed away and was a real steadfast role model in my life. When I think about somebody who has great wisdom and discernment, it's my grandfather, and he passed away. So I'd love to bring him back and share a conversation with him. And the last one it always makes me emotional. I
can tell.
I'd say
I like you said before, the authenticity is something that's huge, and being able to have those moments and being able to show people that you can have those emotions are powerful.
Yeah, it is. And it's good to be asked these questions. It's good to reflect on this stuff, right? Because you start thinking about what life is all about. And so for me, the third one would be my dad. He's just been such a great dad to me over the years, and just really grateful for his continued friendship and just the many ways that he's led me over the course of my lifetime. So I think, man, if I could have, my dad, my grandpa, and Jesus at the same table, what a blessing that would be. That'd be a great conversation that I'd love to have.
Now, who would drink the most amount of coffee?
Ooh, my dad for sure. Yeah,
your dad for sure.
Coffee. Yep. Although my grandpa also drank a lot of coffee, and I just feel like Jesus would love coffee. I don't know if, back in his day he drank coffee or not, but
I don't think they had the great of coffee back then.
They might not have, and they definitely didn't have, like I do the Keurig cups, right? So I'd be because I could process coffee quicker, and so a lot of cups of coffee around that table. That's for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jordan, it has been such a pleasure to have you on today. Make sure you guys go to montgomerycompanies.com. You can find out more about everything that Jordan's doing and positivity, as well as make sure that you can go on to his Instagram, and he also has a Twitter feed. So make sure you go and follow him. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me, man. And I want to say this before I let you go. I just appreciate your service. So thanks for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for caring for others through your service. I think it's so cool that you serve, but also that you set up this podcast in a way that shines light on those who serve. And you are prepared. You're dialed in. You asked great questions today. It was a blessing and an honor to share this conversation with you, man. So thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it. All right, folks, we'll talk.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.